there, everybody, and thank y'all so much for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale. And I'm not at it alone. It's me amigo Big Fizzy.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, I'm here in Skeleton Studios. It's getting spooky around here. It's almost Halloween.
Yes!
The weather's changing. I'm getting excited. What I'm not excited about is my phone. For some reason, today, it just starts, it's like roaming. It's constantly looking for cell towers or Wi-Fi networks. And I know people are going to say it's in your settings. Look, folks, I've tried everything. It just keeps going. And it's working so hard that when fully charged, it drains itself in about 2 hours.
Man.
So it's one of those first world problems. I mean, I know there's people out there right now dodging missiles as we speak.
Yeah.
My phone won't work and it's annoying. But yes, folks, it is annoying. So I'm going to have to do the laborious task of going down and getting another phone.
He almost threw it. Like at one point, he stopped himself.
If I didn't have to have it for work, I think I would just pick up a jitterbug and just go with that. You know what I'm saying?
Jitterbug.
Yeah.
You put the boom boom
You know,
in my heart.
I mean, I like the phone, but I don't use it as much as I use my computer. I use the computer for everything. You know, some people
I
are
thought
faster.
you hated them all times.
I do hate them, and they will become our AI overlord at some point, which they're probably already doing, and
It's
just
happening.
on the sneak tip. But
It's happening.
I like to search stuff on my computer. My wife, she's opposite. She's like she can search anything with a phone in like a few seconds.
Because she's used to looking at tiny things in her hand.
I guess. I've had to take care of my father recently. My mother is on a vacation. She's in Mexico, and I have to take care of Pop, which...
She's got a part-time job as a mule, right? And
Man, it's... Boy, you are at it today. It can be a bit nerve-wracking taking care of Pop because he gets up at like 4:30 in the morning, right? And he's waking you up because he wants this, and it has to be at a certain time.
The egg story is the best.
Oh, I was telling you about the eggs. Yeah, he wanted eggs, and it has to be at like a specific time, like 8 a.m. precisely.
Not 7:55.
I'm like, it's 7:30. I'm like, were you hungry? I'll make it now. He's like, no, not now. It has to be served at 8.
He's pointing at his watch, pointing at the clock.
Everything's regimented. But I will tell you he was happy when I arrived because I brought cigars. If you show up with cigars,
yeah.
he's good. But no, we've been hanging out a lot lately, and it's been kind of fun. It's been interesting. We watched a Leprechaun marathon.
Yeah. Did you watch Predator yet?
We have not, but I'm sure that'll happen because I'm going to be watching him 2 more evenings this week. So.
I have to come out there.
And I have to make special meals for him that he doesn't get because my mom does not like steak, so she never makes it. I know, right? Crazy.
Dude.
The Pop likes it, so he's already specified that one night I'm going to make some steaks.
You need some steaks, yeah.
I'm going to go get some tenderloins.
I cooked the rabbit you gave me.
Some filet mignons. Yeah, how was
filet
that?
mignon? You're making filet mignon. I'm coming.
How was the rabbit?
Dude, it was banger.
Really?
It was banger. Yeah, it's huge.
Now, what kind of preparation did you
So what I did is I did a little mustard-based smoke job on it.
Oh.
So I did a little mustard base on there, and I had a little bit more of the seasoning and all that, and I let it sit in there, and then I slow smoked her on the Traeger for a little bit. Then I pulled it off and wrapped it in with a little butter for a little moisture because, you know, they're thin. They don't have a lot of fat content. Got little butter pads on it and all that and got it wrapped up, and then I finished it off in the oven to where it would kind of maintain the moisture in there.
Man.
Dude, it was good.
Sounds good.
Here's what's crazy is it tastes almost like a turkey.
Really?
Yeah, the way this one came out was strange, but I'm like, dude, if that tastes that good, so I'll have to wheel down there. But I will tell you this, of course, not around your feeder because I know Peter's got his home there. But any of those other ones are fair game. I catch them out there while I'm walking back and forth to the stand so I can put them on the smoker.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something that's not good. What's in my backyard? I'm telling you, it smells like death back there. I've been souring some corn back there.
Strawberry shortcake's corpse lays in your backyard.
For those that don't know, explain to them what souring corn is and why you do it.
So the pigs love it, right? And then, of course, you want to get the pigs in there close. And if you want to pick them up from a good distance, the smell is what's going to bring them, right? So you got to imagine like anything else. If it smells awful to us, imagine how far a pig can smell it, right? So it's real simple. You don't even have to go real crazy with it. Just water and yeast and sugar will do it. But the best way is you can use a little Jell-O or like a little fruit punch in there with it to mix because it's got the sugars and the smell and the flavor with it. You add a little Fleischmann's yeast, cover it with water. You only want to put about, if you get a 5-gallon bucket, half full of corn because you don't want to carry a giant, heavy-ass bucket of like rotten soup everywhere you go with it so it doesn't splash out. But you don't put the lid on it real tight. You want it to be able to breathe. And it literally takes like a few days and it smells like death.
Yeah.
But the pigs love it.
Yeah, so lots of guys will dig a hole in the ground and then pour it in the hole and then cover it back up. And that way it keeps the hogs there.
Yeah, they
longer,
work harder.
Right? They have to work harder to get it. Otherwise, they'll clean it up in a few seconds.
Yeah, they run through it just like crackheads. They just devour the soured corn. But yeah, Kyle's right. If you take post hole diggers, dig it down a foot to 16 inches, pour those holes full out there, and then sprinkle a little dirt on top, and then just wait.
Yeah, because it'll actually seep into the soil all around. They'll tear up the ground the size of your car.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Looking for it,
It's crazy. I'll need to. You know what? Well, next time we'll go out there, we'll post some pictures on the show's Instagram coming up where you can see the wallows of what we're talking about.
We might do video it with that green hog light on there. That would make a pretty interesting video.
We can do that. We'll shoot some video of us out there. We'll get a little campfire story going, and we'll may even post some videos of us whacking swine. Maybe it'll come down to that. But before we get into whacking swine and talking crazy Halloween stories, Brud, I got something for you.
Lay it on me.
Here we go. There was a 6-foot-tall insectoid was reported by a New Mexico rural mail carrier. Now, I've been to New Mexico. I was at several times, but we were in Hobbs one time. Me and our buddy Monty was out there for some fights. We went to watch some MMA fights for some guys that trained with that was actually competing. And I watched a mailman in Hobbs, New Mexico, jaw his mail truck off in these big potholes and come jumping back out of it. Dude, and if carrying the mail was like an Olympic sport, I'm pretty sure they would win because the New Mexican mail carriers was getting it down through there. But this says, I'm a mail carrier in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Folks here are spread out over long distances, and they still need to get their mail, so every day I take a long drive out through the desert to deliver mail to these residents. In February of 2023, I was out by the Valles Caldera National Preserve, and I blew a tire. It was late afternoon, and it was going to be dark soon, and the desert gets really cold at night, year-round, and even worse, cell phone service is spotty around here, almost as bad as Kyle's phone. My reception was zero. My only options were to wait for a car to pass and hope they were willing to help. I could also hike up the hill to try to get signal, so eventually, after I didn't report back, the post office would send somebody out to find me along the highway. But that could literally take hours, and I didn't want to spend the night out here alone, so I chose to hike. I could probably make it up and back just before dark. I just hoped that I would get signal once up on top. I was about halfway up the hill when I decided to take a short break and a water break. So I was sitting on a rock, taking a few sips from the bottle, when I heard some odd sounds. It was like a loud chattering. It reminded me of cicadas that I remembered when living in the eastern U.S. It seemed like it was coming from behind a rocky outcropping directly in the path. Now, I didn't see any other route, so I decided just to move slowly to see what it was. As I began to walk, I stepped on a loose rock, lost my footing. Slid down a few feet before catching myself. Could you imagine? You think you're sneaking up on something unknown and then down the mountain? Ugh.
No, especially not like a 6-foot-tall cicada.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted was a giant insect to see my pee-stained pants. Now it says this chattering stopped, and I noticed something move out from behind a boulder. I saw a 6-foot-tall thin insectoid with the head of a grasshopper.
No.
What?
No.
I hope to never. It had 2 large antennae on its head and a pair of large pincers extending from its thorax. There was another small pair of pincers beneath that. It moved quickly left and then right and then left again, stopping 20 feet away. What they described right then was it's known as juking. It sounds like it's carrying the pigskin.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I didn't know if running or standing my ground was the best option. But after I took another look at its pincers, I decided on the former. I slowly backed away, mimicking its movements. It stood still as it watched me. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's mimicking its movements. It's a mating dance. Now a 6-foot insectoid just leapt upon you.
I don't like little tiny 3-inch insects, let alone 6-foot-tall ones, right?
Yeah. Says, then my cell phone began to ring loudly. The creature's antenna snapped to attention, and it quickly ran down the hillside. I instantly ran in the opposite direction, stumbling and falling as I moved. I eventually reached the bottom of the hill near the roadside, not far from my mail truck. I hopped in the truck and stayed put, hoping that the creature would stay away from me. I did catch a glimpse of the creature as it moved around the hill. I stayed put in the truck for several hours, not daring to leave its safety. After what seemed like forever, a car came along and gave me a lift back into town. What the hell did I see? Oh no. I've heard a lot of stories of strange creatures in the New Mexico desert, but this was almost impossible to even imagine. Of course, I haven't mentioned this to anyone other than my girlfriend. Thanks, H.
Wow. You think it was extraterrestrial? Because that is one of the types that is mentioned is the insectoids, right?
Yes.
You got the reptilians, you got the insectoids, you got the tall whites, you got the grays.
I like to think it is, but then there's other parts of me that go back into the ideas of the Native Americans talking about the ant people.
Right, yeah.
Right? And then they're being underground.
Yeah.
And we've been all through Los Alamos, and that's some wild, desolate country out there.
Well, and there's other countries too, like over in Europe, where they have the similar stories to the Native Americans here, but they call them like mole people and stuff. And then where is it in Turkey and stuff? They found all that in giant encampment that's underground where people were living underground. Some theorize.
Like at Darren Kuyu, where they could live in there for a long time. Yeah.
Like, during the last deluge and, last time we were bombarded by some comet or something, people knew it was coming, were able to go underground and survive the aftermath and the fallout and everything. It makes you wonder.
We make jokes about it a lot about, how you would act, of how it would change your life to see a Bigfoot or to see things like a dog man or whatnot. But still, let's be honest. At the end of the day, you've seen a werewolf in movies. You've seen them in books. You've seen them in magazines and, anywhere that there was print, comic books. It doesn't matter. Werewolves are part of our culture.
Yeah.
Right? The same thing as if you saw Bigfoot. Bigfoot is easily part of your culture. It wouldn't be as shocking as a 6-foot-tall mantis insectoid cicada looking thing.
Yeah, no, that would be way worse.
You can't even wrap your mind around it because you've never, it's so unpopular. They don't even make movies about it, right?
No, but they should.
Should they?
Yeah, why not?
Because it's terrifying.
Because I don't think Bigfoot's scary. I know they try to make it scary, but I don't think if I saw one, I would be terrified. I'd be just like, oh, wow, it's real. Huh,
I like to believe that I wouldn't.
Well, I guess it's all depends on what it's doing. Yeah, if it's like violently, then you'd be like, well, I'm out.
If it's tearing apart the corpse of another human being while staring at me, I'm probably going to be a little nervous. Yeah, but like
I talked about, it's my version of Bigfoot is he's a tree-hugging hippie.
It's Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, that's
my favorite Bigfoot. Yeah,
that's what I like to believe.
Hands down.
The only time he gets hostile is if you're being hostile towards it.
Yeah.
Like the story where they shot one of them and then they bombarded their cabin with boulders, but they killed their family member.
Yeah, they were just hanging out being themselves. Although Harry didn't like hunters.
That is true.
He did not like that, but it's also because I don't think Harry really understood the idea of being able to take care and manage the land, of conservation.
That's true.
It's beyond Harry's grasp, right? But look, I
don't think Harry understood that hunters actually do more for conservation than anybody else.
Than Bigfoot himself.
Yeah, he's not raising any money.
No, what's Bigfoot done? He could. If Bigfoot was on like a fundraising tour, that's what you would want it for. Like you would think that if the federal government would get their wildlife people in there and get Harry to come out of the woods and then put him out there to not on display, but let him go and be a spokesman for conservation.
Yeah, and he'd be really good at like Naked and Afraid of those shows because
he's that way all the time.
He's already naked.
He's never afraid.
They're really good at building shelters.
True,
right?
True,
and sticking those trees upside down.
Yeah, breaking over just 8 foot at the top.
Yeah.
Now we did see one of those, but I'm pretty sure we found a tree just like that at the deer lease. Now, granted, what we've made whispers about from time to time is there have been sightings in and around where we're hunting.
That is true.
For years. like that's one of the reasons it kind of led to that, us wanting to get there. But yeah, there's been a lot of sightings. But yeah, we did find one tree, but that tree was broke over due to like 70 mile an hour plus straight line winds.
I only think about it 7 to 12 times each morning. I'm out there in the dark about the Sasquatch in the area. I'm like, what is that? What is that? What is that?
I only think about it when I'm walking out in the dark and I think something's like paralleling me. But other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah, check this out. Speaking of the woods and scary stuff, it says, I grew up in western New York near Rochester, not too far from the Canadian border. My dad built a mini mansion that backed up to the Forever Wild Woods. Now that's New York State's program that keeps the wilderness as is. Once the house was built, the woods became the playhouse for myself and my closest friend, DJ. It is the early 1990s, and we loved being outside. One day, while exploring, we found an amazing section about 50 minutes walk into the woods that was a gorgeous swamp full of flowers and wildlife. I remember approaching it. There was snapped trees all around, and straight branches jammed into the ground like spikes. See, kind of like what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
The solid land went into the swamp like a peninsula. The trees were almost like walls on each side that funneled us out onto it. We approached the water and saw snapping turtles that all quickly submerged. Being kids, we started skipping rocks and throwing boulders to get the splashes, just doing what kids do. Then out of nowhere, DJ and I felt a wave of fear, sort of like a sixth sense. Our hair stood up and we were both looking around for what triggered this primal feeling. DJ pointed to a tree across the water, and I could only describe it as the top half was bending back and forth. Not like the wind was gently pushing it, as it was close to snapping. Left, then right. Back and forth. It was bending, creaking loud, over and over, quicker and quicker. The bottom of the tree barely moved. Then out of nowhere, there was this rumbling growl that was so loud it shook our insides. I've been around loud things before and even learned to shoot an 8-gauge black powder shotgun. No sound compared to the force of this. Picture your soul getting pushed out your back and then springing back inside like a giant invisible rubber band. In this pierced silence of this, we both ran for our lives. The whole way home, we ran through the bushes and branches, ripping our exposed skin. We both thought we could hear pursuit all around us, but said nothing. Once home, we tried sharing what happened with my parents, but they wouldn't listen. We decided to stay inside for the rest of that day. As usual, DJ was spending the night, and we decided to crash early. We were staying in a 25 by 20 foot room filled with double-hung windows on 2 exterior walls, a sliding glass door that led to a 3-story deck, and a French door that led to a formal living room. Dad had worked hard. He went from a garbage man to a business owner, so this house was massive. Anyway, DJ was on the couch while I lay on the floor in front of the TV with a Nintendo. It was summer, so all the double-hung windows were open wide. I stretched out with my arms behind my head and my neck on a couple of pillows, and my fingers were interlaced. My hands were sort of folding up the back of my head with elbows flared out. DJ was out and snoring, and I was half asleep watching something on the TV. As God is my witness, out of nowhere I felt a massive hand engulf both of my hands and part of my wrist and pull me towards the window. I moved a good 2 or 3 feet, and I lost it, screaming in terror. It released me, and within a minute my dad had come running into the room. DJ was now silent and staring at me. I told my dad what just happened, so he went to each window and said the screens were all slid down and in place. He said that it must have been a bad dream, for me to be a man and shut up. And I shut up, like he told me, and prayed that this would not happen again. I looked at DJ and asked him if he had seen it. He just looked at me and didn't say anything about it. He ended up calling his parents and getting picked up in the middle of the night. I went upstairs and tried to sleep in my bedroom. The next day, I called DJ's house to see if he wanted to come over, and his mom said he didn't feel good, and not to call again until I heard from him. This confused my 12-year-old mind. We never got together again after that. I'd see him occasionally. He was cold with me every time. Eventually, at the end of the summer, I ran into him on a canal path, one of our fishing spots, and decided to question him. His mom wasn't there to be the buffer, so I thought it was a good time. He finally confessed that on that night, for some reason, he awoke and saw a predator-like creature grab and pull me. He didn't use that word specifically. Instead, he described a massive, clear, but distorted, shimmering humanoid thing that reached in and grabbed me. I never knew that others had seen this cloak of invisibility. I now refer to it as a predator. It did lift the screen up easily enough and then close it quick. I don't know. Did it somehow pass through the fiberglass mesh? I don't know. I looked in the morning and saw no tracks, and DJ said he thought it was a ghost. I didn't put it all together till much later as an adult. I think it followed me home after we trespassed on its turf. It could have hurt us easily at any time, but it didn't. I almost think it had a sick type of humor and enjoyed terrifying us a little bit. I never went that far back in the woods again after that, and I later realized that people have a name for this thing, and it's known as the Glimmer Man.
Hey-oh!
Wow.
Yes.
What a crazy story.
Right?
They stumbled upon its homeland, and it followed him home and tried to drag him out of the window.
That's a little disturbing.
And his friends saw it.
That's a little disturbing.
Very disturbing, because you don't really hear about the Glimmer Man, coming into your home. I think I've heard one or maybe two stories
I
of
think
people
we've had two
seeing
stories ever where they were in a house.
in a house. Outside of that, it's always out in the woods. But it seemed to be toying with them. And he did say that it growled. I think it would have been cooler if it would have been like, ha, 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 ha.
Want some candy?
Yeah, if it would have been like that.
That'd have been terrifying.
Still very,
Yeah.
very terrifying. I don't know what the Glimmer Man is, but
Well, thanks for sharing, homie. Hey, let's take a quick break. When we get back from that break, I'm going to be talking about some Halloween humanoids I think you're going to enjoy, folks. Let's take a quick one. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. Y'all, what better time of year to talk about creepy humanoids than right here around Halloween, right? What better time? Not only is it a great time for it, but it's also seems to be like when maybe some of these even started, some of these sightings, some of these possible urban legends, whatever this is, a lot of it seems to hinge around the spooky season, which I love, right? We all, if you're listening to this podcast, I think it's safe to assume that you love Halloween. You love the creepy, the unnerving, the unsettling. It doesn't necessarily have to be, terrifying, but just that creepiness about the whole thing, right? Nothing beats a good creepy story, whether you're sitting around in the dark with friends or around a campfire or wherever you're at, nothing beats it. This is kind of like the starting lineup, right? This is like the varsity lineup, the starters on offense. This is them. This is some of the creepiness that goes on. And there's a few of them. I mean, one's pretty close to where I'm at. One's down here in Texas, I'm going to share with you, that's been getting more popular as of recent. There were some sightings in the past, but when I say as of recent, I mean within the last 6 months, there's been a few more things kick up around. But I want to start it off with, you can't really possibly say your favorite, right? That's a problem I have, is saying it's my favorite. This is one of my favorites. They're all my favorite, right? Yeah, I guess we should just start off by, we could all agree that we all love all of this. And then the things that you don't love is what you should point out instead of saying about the things. Let's just safely assume all of these are my favorite. And if they're not, I'll tell you that's not my favorite. It'll be way easier that way. This fires up. This report actually came, I want to say, probably 6-7 years ago, took place in Kentucky, nonetheless. Yeah, beautiful place. Kentucky's beautiful. This actually popped off in eastern Jefferson County, right? And if you're picking up on what I'm putting down and you're familiar and well steeped in old time folklore, then you know I'm talking about the Pope Lick Monster. The Pope Lick Monster is great because it sounds like a satyr, right? It's a goat man. Straight up, it's a half goat, half man. The bottom half is a goat, top half's a dude with horns. I don't know why the horns always get left around if it's the bottom half's a goat, but I mean, look, if you didn't have horns, right, and you were just lower half goat man, you could pull that off. I mean, yeah, aside from maybe if you had like the way you have to walk on your hooves, but let's just say you could get you some shoes on. You put boots on. Right? You filled them up with something. I don't know. You put your leg in there, wrapped it up. You put your goat foot wrapped in cellophane. You fill your boot with spray foam. Now you're set, right? Now you can get around in there and then you can slide them in and out. You're good. Everything's fine. You could get away with it, but the horns get you every time, right? For those of you that are old school TTRPG players from 5e or even 1e, you start talking about tieflings with horns. I mean, that's what gives it away. If you've seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie, you see the young lady that plays the druid. Right? Well, she's got horns. She'd pass as a young lady without those horns. Same thing as the goat man. So this fires all this off. What ended up happening a few years ago was there was a young lady from Ohio out there. She was in her late 20s from Dayton. She was out there with her, I believe, boyfriend. And they were in town to basically see some of this stuff. They were taking a haunted tour of Louisville, Kentucky. And they were going to believe they were going to the Waverly Hills Sanitarium there in Louisville. But before all this had started, they were introduced to the story of the Pope-Lick monster. And because of that story, this young woman lost her life. She was out there on a train trestle. Now, this is where a lot of this story takes place for those that don't know. Still an active railroad trestle, actually, is where it's at. And that's what ended up happening. Around between 7 and 7:30, I believe, this was in April of 2016, she was struck and killed by a train there. Sounds like they had got up on the trestle, made up there looking around, and kind of got surprised by it. Realized at this point, if you've seen the old movie Stand By Me, a lot like that, where when you're on the bridge, it's either leap to known death or try to outrun the train, or it's going to get you. And that kind of sounds like what they were going to try to pull off, and it didn't quite work out. And anyway, she had lost her life, which is a horrible thing. And this is one of those things that happens lots of times when people go and investigate, right? You go and throw yourself into it, and then there may be more to the story. Something like that happens, things like this. But what I'm talking about is the Norfolk Southern Railroad trestle there in Jefferson County. You can look it up online. It's beautiful. Old trestle. It's neat. Like, really neat. It's cool to think about that. But yeah, you could see getting caught up there would be a very, very bad problem. Now, some always point out that, okay, some of these accidents and some of this stuff has nothing to do with the Goat Man. It's simply that was folklore and urban legend that got people out there. There's drinking. There's possibly people under the influence of drugs, known under the influence of alcohol. They get up around these trestles and they fall to their death. A train hits them. Something scary like that happens. But nonetheless, there are some stuff that ties to it. There are some things that go back into it to give you some origins of the whole thing. It is wild because there's some stories claim that this monster will actually leap off the trestle onto vehicles passing by, like come flying down. There's been reports that the Pope-Lick monster was seen carrying an axe dripping with blood. That doesn't sound like a Halloween story. I don't know what is. A goat creature carrying a bloody axe. They also, some claim that they've been out, and late at night, full moon nights, and you can actually see the monster walking across the trestle as if he is protecting said trestle, right? Some say it was just the fact that this thing was some sort of abomination or a circus freak that they always, I love how they throw that out. We always, Kyle and I laugh. How long has it been since you've seen like a real sideshow, like what was referred to as a freak show back in the day, along with any circus or any carnival or anything? I've shared the story several times about going to the Texas State Fair, and just the other day talked about running into the fella named Grady, the lobster boy, and actually having a conversation with him. I did a segment on it, did a whole show about it. There were others there, but that was commonplace. I mean, at the time I was 13 years old, maybe 12 to 14, somewhere right around in there, right? As you see this, and you don't see that much anymore. So the idea, right, of, oh, this was like a circus freak who went and vowed for revenge, went crazy, like that's kind of almost like a dated story. It doesn't quite hold up to today's standards or today's times because we don't really have those anymore. But still, nonetheless, it's extremely strange. Some of them, there's one story, well, I say one story, there's several of them out there, but there's one that claims that this could easily have been something that they believed came from a satanic ritual, that maybe this thing was summoned out there, and then this is where it stays. It's also known, again, like I said, as the sheep man. Now, this has been Goat Man, sheep man. I'd rather be a goat man, right, than a sheep man. Sheep man just sounds bad. I'm kidding. That's terrible. That's a bad joke. Anyway, Jefferson County, Halloween night's rolling in. This is what it is. There was a fella named Michael Zettler. Michael Zettler was quoted talking about this back in, he graduated in 1985. So that tells you it goes on further than that, right? Zettler said it had always been around. He claimed that as kids growing up, they had always heard the tales of the Pope-Lick monster, and that it had always been there and that it really seemed to amplify around Halloween. They also there's also stories or interviews and quotes written from a woman named Mary. And Mary Ruckriegel is actually the wife, at the time was the wife of the mayor, Dan Ruckriegel, there in town, in Jefferson County there. She reported even hearing the story when she was a young girl in the early 60s, hearing all this stuff. And again, she said, look, I don't know what caused it, but it's definitely really amplifies in town around Halloween. There's been several. A fellow named Rod talked about when he was in his early 20s, he remembered hearing older kids and even adults tell the stories whenever he was 4 or 5. And of course, it fired up heavy around Halloween. So what they describe is this creature they believe lives below this train trestle that passes over Pope Lick Road and Pope Lick Creek it's on Taylorsville Road near Fishersville, Kentucky. Now, like I went on to say, most describe this thing as a half man, half sheep, half goat, whichever, and that it terrorizes folks, that it has horns. Some report that it has a bit of a man face. Some report that it has a bit of a mixture of a goat or a sheep face and a man. Real ugly snout, kind of hair on its body. It walks upright. It has hooves. People report seeing hooves and that it can move very quickly. Like this super quick goat streaking in there, right? Locals have even said this is their Ichabod crane, which makes sense. It sounds like that would be ideal. But this is what they base it on. Some say it's not that at all. Like I said, some report, oh, well, it's not this or it's not that. Some believe, and this is interesting, some believe, and this is a quote, that it's an old chemist. That there was an old chemist out there and he became a recluse because of this chemical explosion. Look, I don't know about y'all. That it disfigured him so poorly, so terribly, right? That he just doesn't show his face. Just because you're disfigured doesn't make you throw people off of train trestles and jump on cars with axes and dress up like a goat. That doesn't matter. That doesn't change any of that. The first thing I think of when I hear these stories about possible chemical explosions is meth cooks, right? I'm sorry. Sorry it goes there. Anybody hiding out in the woods these days that's got a crazy chemical lab set up, more than likely is making the magic rocks, right? That's what they're doing out there. That's what's going on. So yeah, maybe it's just a bunch of meth heads gone crazy. Goat man meth head. Could you imagine? Could there be, you think cocaine bear's bad? Imagine like meth head goat man. Like that sounds terrible. But anyway, this trestle that we speak of, that this thing lives around, has been there since like the late 20s, early 30s, I believe, when it was built. 29, 30, 31, right around in there, I believe, when that trestle was built. Like I said, it's awesome if you check it out. It's about 800 feet long, 100 foot tall. So you can only imagine if you're trying to get out of there and you're on it, you don't want to, but you may have to leap, right? So there's been a lot of stuff going on. Now, what's crazy, excuse me, is the sightings. They do vary. They vary quite a bit by what they describe its face. Does it have horns? Does it not? This, that, and the other. But they still do seem to stick to an average shape or size. If you jump forward again, back in 1951, there was a 17-year-old boy went missing in Northfield, Vermont. For those of you, again, that are steeped in the wisdom, I'm talking about the Northfield Pigman, right? Pigman. This fits perfectly because it all took place the night before Halloween. The story goes that October 30th in 1951, a young man named Sam set out with some eggs. Yeah, that's right. Because it's Devil's Night. No, they called it Picket Night. Again, right? They're going out to cause some problems. We're going to throw eggs at folks. We're going to egg some houses, I guess, just be kids, right? This is what we're doing. Jump into it. The next morning gets up. Everything's done. The parents find that Sam's not home. They look everywhere. They try to contact everybody. Nothing. They get a ton of people to come help them. Where did Sam go? They look for weeks, over hundreds of square miles. No Sam. No Sam. Nothing, no remains, no any kind of clues, no nothing. Again, just like missing 411, Sam vanished. Now, some believe, of course, this is part of the folklore. He was possessed by the devil. The devil got his soul, right? And that it made him into this monster. And Sam is known to eat pigs raw, kill and slaughter pigs that he would find in the woods. Like he went ravenous and crazy the night of Halloween is what some say. Some claim that not only that the Pigman came from the fact that he cut the head off of pigs, pulled the skull out, took all out just the hide of the pig and just wore it like a mask. And the whole time he would just run around the towns up there, scaring the hell out of anybody he could find, right? And that allegedly around the Devil's Wash Bowl up there that Sam still lives. That it has given him an unnaturally long life with his blood veins coursing with evil, I guess is what it's supposed to be. I don't know. There's all these crazy stories, but I do know this, that some of the sightings actually have taken place pretty close around and just on the edge of the Devil's Wash Bowl. It's a river and waterfalls right in this area, full of caves, a bunch of caves in and around there, which makes the perfect place, right? Would be the most perfect place if you were a creepy humanoid hiding. Some folks have investigated right down in there. They'd found, allegedly, one of the tales is that in one of the caves, they had done some investigation, and while in there, they found bones or remains of animals, bones. And allegedly, some of these bones are that of pigs. There's pig bones in there. So instantly, everybody's like, oh my God, we don't know what that is, right? I mean, it could have been pig bones, could have not been pig bones. If there's a lot of pigs in the area and there is any predators, you'd got to imagine, yeah. But like we've discussed before, once pigs get to a certain size, we're pretty much their only predator, right? When it gets to that. So whenever that story got out years ago that we had found pig remains or pig bones in this one, well, then that's where everybody thought we'd found the lair of the Pigman, right? So people would go down there. And again, you got to think of this much like we did with the Poplick monster. It's teenagers. It's young people. Right, and we've all done it. You've all had that point in time in your life to where, around that time we're going and doing things with our friends that we know we shouldn't be doing. We're out there drinking, right? We're partaking in the electric lettuce. We're getting all crazy out there, and we see a pig man. Or you know about the stories and you go, we've all done it. Everybody out there, especially as time went back in the day, there wasn't much to do. Pre-cell phone, right? Pre-cell phone, pre-internet. What do? You go get drunk and you try to scare up some crazy monsters, right? I guess that's what we did. So here's one of the stories. It says that my sister and a couple of her friends went out to the Devil's Wash Bowl their senior year. Listen to this stuff. They took sleeping bags and flashlights, all the gear to go camping, and they were going out, of course, to check this out. It says, I wasn't there to give a firsthand account because I was only 8 at the time, so I can only tell you what she had told me. There were 6 or 8 of them, depending on who you ask, all couples. They picked a number of caves, one for each pair. Bum, 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 bum. My sister and her boyfriend were in their cave, rolling out their sleeping bags and trying to start a fire when they heard some shouts and then screaming from one of the caves. Now, when they got there, they say that this girl was curled up in a ball in the farthest corner of the cave, her boyfriend nowhere to be found. She told them that the Pigman had come trudging into their cave, completely undaunted by their presence. That the guy started shouting, both to drive it away and to get everybody else to pay attention. The Pigman casually, nonchalantly if you will, gathers up a large rock there in the bottom of the cave and smacks old boy in the side of the head with it. Well, he goes down, Pigman gathers him up, right? Knocks him unconscious, Pigman picks him up, throws him on his shoulder, and takes off out of the cave with him before anybody gets there. Now, right, nobody saw it. They couldn't find any signs of where it might have been. They did find a rock on the floor. The rock did have blood on it, and there were bare footprints in the creek mud outside there in that cavernous area. So, what do? They all jump in the charge. They all go to town. They go to the police. The girls go find them. The remaining boys all grab flashlights and weapons, and they went after them. So the girls go to the police station. The guys go running in there after them to try to find out where it's went. Hot on the trail. Story goes the footprints disappeared at the edge of the road. They lost the trail there completely. Search parties come in or set up. Police and canine units come in. Coordinated effort. They bring in other townships, police forces, all of this. Few days later, they find some of the guys' clothes by a search dog. They'd been torn and scattered in an abandoned farmhouse one town over. Story goes that the teen's photo was put up in that area, and one guy came forward, and he said that the other night he had been woken up by the sound of someone outside of his home. So he checked out the kitchen window, and there was someone rummaging around in the trash pan-ded like in the garage, right? He said the only thing was that this person was wearing a faded and ripped pair of jeans, and that when he turned the porch light on, the intruder looked up and it looked just like the kid in the photo. The only difference was his body was covered in white hair and his eyes looked hollow. Now, I don't know if that just means he was sad or if it means that it was like a black-eyed kid, right? I don't know. I don't know what that is, but how wild is that? That Pigman allegedly gets one, and then this dude sees Pigman that's changed this kid into another servant of Pigman, right? Who knows? But either way, these stories still float. You could still get on there. There's still this Halloween talk. Right now is the best time to do any kind of searching around, kicking around if you want to find some crazy humanoid stuff to go check out. Now, I will say this. You could take this for a grain of salt. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me at all. I'm not a person with whom you should take advice. But is there anything more fun than going and checking out for crazy, creepy stuff like this during Halloween? No. Go do it, but be safe. Be very safe. Don't climb on stuff. Don't go down in things. You can go and investigate just by standing there, right? Right? I mean, look, people go to professional sporting events to tailgate and claim they were at the game. You're in the presence of the game. You weren't watching the game. But it's safe and it's cheap and you have a good time, all that stuff. Look, do the same thing when you're investigating these monsters. Go and hang out in this area, but don't dig too deep. You start digging too deep, that's where you could get hurt, right? You don't want to fall off the trestle. You don't want Pigman to smack you in the head with a rock and run you off somewhere, and all you got to do is run around with a white hair all over your body and dirty pants while you're digging in trash cans. Don't do that. Don't go that far. This is the one I wanted to share with y'all that happens here in Texas, Houston to be exact. This is what kind of kicked this whole thing off when I saw this headline. I'd been low-key keeping up with this little by little over the years when there'd been whispers of this popping up, not just down here, but different stories that we have received throughout a few years. I'd probably say within the last 4 or 5, there'd been whispers here and there that we had seen, and this is probably what fired it all off. But this is the Ratman of Houston. Pretty crazy, right? Now, for some reason, when you tell me that there could be a Ratman, if there's a Ratman in a port city, I believe it. For some reason, I'm like, yeah, I could see there being really strange things happening where there's a lot of ships and waterway access as it comes and goes. I like to believe that kind of thing could take place, right? I don't know why. Rats on ships, Ratman, you could come and go and travel like the sailors used to be. I have a whole story in my mind that I would like to write. Anyway, this actually went down. There was a lot of stories shared about this, but this is one I have to read you that said I had an absolutely bizarre experience at a Houston Texans football game, and I needed to share it because I want to know if anyone else has encountered anything like this. Last fall, I was at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, when I had to go to the restroom, so I headed out. Now, this is where it gets weird. I go into the restroom, and out of the corner of my eye, I spot a guy in a hoodie. That's not the freaky part. The strange thing is he had this seriously strange nose that was kind of flaring, and he was chewing on his finger. At this point, I realized the guy looks just like a rat. So I'm creeped out at this moment. I can kind of barely move. He had this intense stare, and he gazed up and locked in on me. Put his fingers to his lips like he was telling me to shh, and he walked away. And at that moment, I felt the most genuine fear I've ever felt. Like the kind that sticks with you. See, there was no one else in the restroom at the time. So I'm asking if anyone else has encountered something like this at NRG Stadium. Maybe not exactly at the football game, but just seeing someone or something that made me question my reality. It's been kind of bothering me. So I'm hoping I'm not alone on this. I'm hoping someone has had a similar experience and I'm just not going crazy here. So I start thinking, right, we start getting the idea of, what if they're there? What if this rat man has the ability to glamour you or to charm you in some way to where you don't notice his looks? Much like a leprechaun, much like anything like this. But certain people it doesn't work on. And then when he sees it, he's got to leave, right? Like he's hanging in like, oh, I got to get out of here. This guy recognizes that I'm not what I look like. Well, it wasn't long after that posting that something else popped up. Another Houston sports fan says, yeah, I'm from Houston, and something shockingly similar happened to me at a Houston Comets WNBA game when I was up there getting something from the concessions stand. The concessions worker was looking down and being quite fidgety. So once I walked up and asked for some popcorn, the concession worker glared up at me with creepy rat humanoid eyes. Now look, that line throws me. What the hell's that even mean? Rats just have black eyes. What's creepy humanoid eyes like rat eyes? Just black eyes. That's what they got, right? It says the way he sucked his almost cartoonishly large teeth shook me to my core. And as he stared into my eyes, he then did the same shush motion as I backed up and walked away. The strangest part, and here we go, folks, is that there were many people around me, but no one else seemed to notice. Nobody noticed this thing. That's not all. Here's another one that says, y'all aren't alone. I live in Houston, Texas, and I have seen a person that fits this description while driving near NRG in South Main area. I was sitting at a red light, and I felt that feeling of being stared at. So I turned my head to the right, and in the car next to mine, well, right there was what looked like an adult, human-sized creature sitting in the driver's seat, but he had the face of a mammal. At the time, I thought it was dog-like, but it could have easily been more rat-like. His face was covered in fur, and he had a snout for a nose and whiskers. Also, he had, here we go, beady, non-human eyes. So he stared at me with such intensity without looking away that I felt the most visceral fear, sort of sinking feeling in my stomach. I wished I could drive away at that very moment, but I was stuck at the light. I finally was able to speed away, but that image stuck with me. Now, everyone told me, has just laughed it off. Said my mind was trying tricks on me, but they don't understand. This was super freaky. I believe it just stared at me intensely without moving. I meant some mammal. This wasn't a human, but some mammal. So again, there we go. This thing, now we didn't get the shushing, but again, a lot like these stories of the reptilians, of the lizard folk, certain people see them, certain people don't, right? The same with shadow beings, the same that could possibly be with the fae, anything fae related in the fae realm. Could this be something like it? But this is a flap or something that is going on right now, much like the winged humanoids, right? Much like Mothman, the things that's going on. We have had several encounters or several reports of encounters with this Ratman of Houston. So if there is a Ratman of Houston, this thing is living among you and not everybody notices it. So how is that possible? Anyway, folks, creepy Halloween stories as we're gaining up on the creepy season. Make sure if you've got any wild and wacky Halloween stories or local lore legends, please share them with us. We'd love to hear it. Let's take a quick break. When we bounce back, we'll pry open Big Fizzy's tiny brain, see what he thinks. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. And there we go. Wrapping it up with the Ratman of Houston.
The Ratman.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
What pointed me to the Ratman too makes me think about is the story that you had done one time about the leprechaun playing music in like a subway station, right?
Yeah.
It makes me think of like things like that could be hiding in plain sight, but maybe it's whipping some kind of magical presence on it that causes it to glamour people or to somehow confuse them. I don't know. But either way, that's a heck of a story. But yeah, there you go, folks. Some good Halloween stuff from the Pope Lick Monster all the way down to the Vermont Pigman, the Northfield Pig fella.
That is crazy.
That's pretty wild.
Speaking of the Ratman, it makes me think of the Rat King. Do you remember the Rat King from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yes,
He's like the guy who like lives in the sewers.
Yeah.
Luke has, a lot of figures, and he has the rat. When he was real little, he used to love the Rat King for some reason. He's like, I'm born from the filth of 1,000 men or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. He had some quote, of course, Luke being Luke.
He loves
He'd always tell me that. He's getting fired up because we're going to be going trick-or-treating pretty soon. He's got a friend of his.
They're ready to double down on gathering candy, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. They got all about it. And we went to Screams, which is a place about 45, 50 miles from here. And it's where they have the Renaissance Fair every year. But around Halloween.
Is it a good haunted house thing down there?
I wouldn't go.
Really?
Well, I was disappointed. Of course, Luke loved it. Because I thought that the place that they have it is called Scarborough Fair.
It's not the whole grounds?
No, it's only like a quarter of it. But they still charge you like $50 to get in.
Man.
So there was 5 haunted houses. We went to all of those. That was pretty cool. But I was expecting it to be like it is during the Renaissance Fair.
You were thinking of like a Renaissance Fair sized thing like they do at Scream of the Park or whatever, like at Six Flags where the whole park's crazy.
Yeah, Fear Fest or whatever. But that's what I thought. But no, I mean, there was almost no vendors open.
Man, we're such old men. We're complaining about it.
There was no like shows going on. There was no jousting. There was no juggling. There was no nothing. No birds of prey. Nothing. None of the
walked around like
where all the
waited in line.
Where all the shops are that sell swords and stuff. None of those were open.
Couldn't buy a sword.
You could buy beer. You could buy turkey legs. You could buy funnel cake. You could buy soda, bottled water. That's it. Outside of that,
did you get a turkey leg?
I did not. No.
Did you have a beer?
I did not. I had a Dr. Pepper and I had a Dasani water.
Man.
But Luke had a blast. He liked it. He did. There was one that was all clowns. He wasn't too crazy about that one.
Who is?
But
you should have gone in there and passed out uppercuts for free.
It was a really good time. And he was also bummed out is because the Renaissance Fair, everybody dresses up. You're not allowed to dress up at this. You're not allowed.
You and I discussed that about people not being able to dress up at certain things so they couldn't tell them apart. Remember, that's what we were always like, man, you might not be able to tell people from who's working there and who's not.
Yeah, I don't remember. Did we talk about it on the show? Or is that
no, it's just me and you, I think, was just talking about it.
I don't know if a bunch of people got hurt or something, but they stress the rules before you go into each one of these haunted houses. And rule number 1.
I'm number 1.
Was like, don't hit anybody or they're going to hit you back. So they must have like a real problem with people hitting.
Don't put your hands on me and you won't get struck.
Well,
that's pretty simple, right?
That's basically what they were saying.
You can scare me all you want to, but if you put your hands on me, I'm going to put my hands back on you.
Well, that's basically what they were saying. Is like,
suplex.
Don't touch anybody and they won't touch you.
You're just going to teep kick a guy right through a doorway.
Luke didn't like one of them because I guess they picked up on us saying something, or me going like, Luke, look, what is that? They figured out his name. So the whole time, every monster in that haunted house was like, Luke.
That's genius.
He was like, how did they know my name?
That is so genius to freak a kid out.
And he was like, they must have got it from you. And I go, they didn't get it from me. I was standing next to you the whole time. Because Luke was like, so there was like a group of like 6 of us. My wife, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, and his girlfriend, and Luke. And of course, I'm like, well, what's the order? What are we going? And Luke's like, well, you're going first. Me. I'm like, okay. All right, that's fine. You'll go first the next time. And then so like the next house would come and I'd be like, all right, you're first this time. And he's like, nah, I changed my mind. I think I need you to go first this time. And I go, what? What's the deal?
Well, he goes, and brave till it's time to be big and brave.
He goes, the 2 things, he goes, you never want to be the first one in and you don't want to be the one in the back because they come up behind you.
He understands.
He already understands.
He gets it. He's watched enough horror movies. He knows who dies first. He's like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
We had a good time. It was fun.
Brett, I got you something here. This happened to a patrol officer in Katy, Texas.
Oh, I know where that is.
Says that now Lon fired this off because this ain't far from home from here. This occurred in September of 2022 in the Wood Creek Reserve neighborhood in Katy.
Wood Creek Reserve. I think that's a good whiskey.
It is. It was approximately 11:30 p.m. So I saw this girl standing by the side of the road. She looked like she may have been a preteen. I pulled over because I thought I could help her.
Creepy.
She was just standing there, and I thought it was weird that a kid would be standing by the side of the road that time of night, so I pulled over to ask if I could help.
Sure you did.
The first thing I did is call it in, and when I looked up, she had moved, and she was in front of the patrol car standing in the headlights, and she was looking at me. She didn't seem afraid or worried, and I thought that was weird. So I told dispatch. I went to get out of the car, and just as I was starting to open my door, I saw her eyes. At that point, I didn't want to get out of the car.
They were black?
I realized that her eyes were totally black. I mean, completely black. She must have seen that I realized that because she started to approach the car. It took everything I could do not to drive away at that point. I mean, I'm a peace officer of the law. It's my job, but it was this visceral thing that just kind of took over. I can't describe it, but all of my training had just gone right out the window. Everything in me just wanted to get the hell away from that girl, but I stayed. I rolled down the window, and as she approached me, I asked her where she lived, and she mumbled something. I leaned forward, and she suddenly attacked me. This ungodly voice was then coming out of her. I had no idea how a human could make that voice. But I was trying to push her off of me. She was trying to pull me out of my patrol car.
Jeez.
I was screaming at her to get off of me, and then she said something. I can't get those words out of my mind. She said, "We're going to die tonight." Why would she say that to me? I struggled to break her grip. Then I heard a loud crack. Then she went limp and fell onto the road. I thought that I may have seriously injured her. I quickly got out of the car to see if she was okay. Then suddenly she popped up like nothing had happened and ran away into the dark night. I could hear her laughing. She was not human, I'm telling you. And when I got back to the station, I told my supervisor what had happened, and he told me to ignore it and to not write up an incident report. I still patrol that exact same area, and I believe that she's still out here roaming in the night and that she's just not human. Thanks, KJ.
Oh, my gosh.
I want to see.
What would happen if you tased a black-eyed kid?
Well, I will hope. What if he has body cam footage and that's just something that they won't release?
That's a good point, yeah.
Because I've often wondered a lot of that, but could you imagine what was the cracking and the breaking and all that stuff? Like a cracking sound, a loud crack. I'm like, as his firearm discharged or something, right? But that wasn't it.
Man.
But she attacked him. And apparently the strength of a grown man can't get away from her.
Do you think it's just demonic possession? That was a girl, a real girl?
I think they're demons flat out.
Just flat out.
Yeah, I think they're just some kind of dark fae creatures. If this is all true, if all that is real, I've never, like we said before, you and I've never had those experiences.
Don't want to.
So don't want to. I'm just speaking on if, right? If this is all true, I don't see how it could be a child that was taken over and then used this way. Simply because like that, it would be easy to follow up on. If he really had this issue and it was freaking him out and he still patrols that area, you would see that child during the day somewhere. I mean, it's been over a year. You patrol that area daily. You would find that child walking in and out of their house, around the block. You would see it somewhere, that child, and you would be able to approach it or at least follow that child to see where it lived, to go to the house, knock on the door, talk to the parents. You could do all that.
Ugh.
KJ doesn't report that. Says, I just know she's still out here. And what easier way? It's like we discussed when you would see like, we talked about the trash bag dwindies, right? If you were a fae and you could materialize or change your shape to look like trash, what better way to fit in?
Right.
As you could move anywhere. Well, think about it in town. Nobody gives kids a second thought when they see them playing at the park or doing any of that. There's kids being kids. You've got busy adult things to do that you're doing. How easy would it be for a demon to assume the shape of a child, preteen especially, where they're not old enough for them to need a job or to be where you could really depend? You're right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
where you don't have that maturity for responsibility quite yet, but you're not so young that it's a shock to see you walking by yourself.
True.
So you fit that groove to where you're hiding in plain sight. And I think any of that stuff could be easily manipulated, or that's where something like that could go.
Yeah, man. I don't know. The black-eyed kid stuff.
I would straight up panic.
I would just drive off.
But I like how he reports that his training had gone out the window, and even a peace officer was panicking in the presence of this thing. So your body, like I said, it's like a visceral reaction, knows that there is danger in that. Not just black eyes, but it's whatever essence or whatever it's putting off your body senses it.
Yeah, and that's
pretty wild.
That's terrifying. If you have a similar story or any other story you want to share with me and Cam and the listeners, do not hesitate. You can email the show at expandedperspectives@yahoo.com. You can call the show 888-393-2783. That's 888-393-BRUD, BRUD. Let's not forget about our fantastic sponsors. If you want to take ownership of your health, try AG1. You can get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. You just have to go to drinkag1.com/expanded. Also, let's talk about ZBiotics. You got to go to zbiotics.com/EXPANDED to get 15% off your first order when you use the code expanded at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using our code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. That's zbiotics.com/expanded. And Lumi Labs.
But not least, Brud. Last but not least, Lumi Labs, the people that created microdose gummies. Folks, it's available nationwide. If you want to learn more about microdosing THC, it's simple. Go to microdose.com. Use the code expanded when you get there. With that, you're going to get 30% off your first order and free shipping. Like I said before, all these links are going to be found in the show notes. My Brud will drop them down in there.
Absolutely.
All of that stuff. So microdose.com. Use the code expanded. Brud, you going to be working hard this week?
I hope so. I'm getting ready for Halloween. I know a lot of you out there listening to the show are going to be going to Halloween parties and stuff. Please be careful out there.
Yes.
Get you an Uber. Get you a designated driver. There's no reason. Take ZBiotics. There's no reason to risk getting yourself hurt or in trouble or screwing up your future. So just be safe out there. Don't take any apples or what are the things?
Or
they
do.
warn you, or what do they warn you about?
Don't
remember
know.
the crazy things they always tell you?
But remember, we grew up in that crazy time too, though. Like we were watching Halloween 3 where the mask could kill you.
Yeah. Shamrock.
Yeah.
What was that? Silver Shamrock. That was the name of the company that made the masks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. Enjoy all the scary movies that are out and about. That's about all the time we have for this episode. Till next time, folks, I'm Kyle. He's Cam.
Peace, y'all.